Hi guys, how are you doing? This is Mr. D in Gator Talk Show. Today we have a special guest. Most of you know him. If you are in Kadoma, most of you know him. Those who attended Paarawan, I think you know as my eldest Edu. We have Mr. Disalas in the studio, so he's gonna share with us a bit of light in his journey. How are you, Mr. Disalas?
I'm fine, and you? Thank you for inviting me.
Okay. It's our pleasure to have you. It's our honor, right, to have you in the studio. So today, I'm sure most of people, they want to hear what the man is gonna talk about in the studio. So we're just gonna let him introduce himself a little bit, so that we may get into the interview.
Yes, like what you've heard, my name is Ephraim Disalas. Call me a son of the soil.
Oh, yes.
A son of Kadoma.
Oh, yes.
I was born and bred here.
Okay. So, people, they want to know if Mr. Disalas was born in somewhere around the streets of Kadoma. They want to know maybe the areas where you raised munachanatsira kana kuti they want to know a bit of your story.
Actually, call me a teacher of Mkomboni.
Okay.
You know what a Komboni is?
What is that?
It's a compound.
Yes.
That's a corrupted name for compound.
Komboni.
Komboni. You find a Komboni on a farm.
Okay.
So I was actually born on a farm.
All right.
Georgia farm to be specific. That was way back in 1961, and my father used to work there.
Okay.
And immediately after I was born, by fate or by chance, we moved to Gatuma then. That was in 1962 when we started staying in the Ngesi suburbs.
All right.
And then we left there in 1969 when Rhodesian Spinners then had built houses for its workers. It was Spinners number 1 and it was Spinners number 2 in Bakari Street.
All right.
Moved in there in 1967.
Seems like you know a lot about Kadoma because way back then a lot of changed here in Kadoma. I think pane dzimwe nzvimbo dzanga dzingori a ground panguva iyoyo dzisati dzavakwa. Can you share with us a little bit of those places?
You are very right. Since my youth up until now,
Yeah.
Gatuma then, and later Kadoma in 1980, has gone through a lot of phenomenal growth in terms of infrastructure, particularly houses and other social amenities. We're looking at beer houses, we're looking at schools, we're looking at recreational centers. So you see, when we moved here in 1967, Rimuka then used to start where we have the 3-roomed houses and the so-called 5-pound sections just next to Kureta Primary School. Okay. And then it would stretch as far as the new 4-roomed houses where we have Mpamombe Primary School. And then over this side, Rimuka ended at the GB section.
All right.
The General Barracks.
Okay, on that one now. Wow, how was the GBs made?
You mean?
And what were they for?
Right,
like,
the General Barracks.
Yeah.
These houses were built, as you can see, that Kadoma is an industrial town.
Okay.
These were the quarters for the men who were single by then, including these SQ houses. They are single quarters.
Okay.
So these were quarters which were set up aside for bachelors.
All right.
So the GBs were called General Barracks because by then you would get about up to 4 people sharing a single room. Even the SQ section here, we used to have communal toilets, and you can also have communal toilets.
All right.
So the quarters themselves were only reserved for, were used as sleeping quarters. But most of the people were housed in the SQ section the GB section, just like the Magenara section where you had married couples or where you had families.
In Magenara, that's where the Musano and Zo was.
The Nissan houses, yes, we used to have these Nissan houses in the Ginari section.
Yeah.
But our fathers called them Magenara.
Magenara, okay.
Actually, they were houses which were constructed by the Ginari company.
Okay.
Deft Whitehead is an offshoot of a Ginari company. In fact, the company started off where you have the present Cotton Research Institute. Those buildings which you see immediately to your right as you enter the Cotton Research stretch on the way to Patchway.
All right.
This is where we used to have the Ginari. That's the initial place where the Ginari was before it was moved to its present site at Deft Whitehead complex there. It was by then it was called Rhodesian Spinners.
Okay, so the 4 rooms houses and maybe we call this the GBs. Yeah, which ones existed first?
In fact, the core of Rimoka was the Ginari houses and the GB section. But then we also used to have another old compound next to where Rimoka police station.
All right.
Where later it was developed to be a bus terminus.
All right.
And then where you have the present Varimi market or the Msika market.
All right, that one, yeah.
Right, that piece of ground going to the light industrial areas. We used to have also another section which was called Kuma 7 and 6.
Kuma 76.
Kuma 7 and 6.
7 and 6.
Because the people by that time they paid a monthly lodging fee, a rental of 7 and 6. That was 75 cents. Those were still using pounds and pennies. So 7 and 6, that's 75 cents.
Wow.
That's why they were called Ma 7 and 6. But these structures were mainly poor and dagger structures. It was almost like a squatter camp, and you used to have a lot of shebeens there, a lot of skokiana being brewed there and so forth. But they were pulled down around 1968, 1969 when the other suburbs started sprouting up. Like I said, we moved in 1967. So immediately after the GB section, Rhodesian Spinners now started building merit quarters for its staff. Starting with the first section, which is called, which was Spinners number 1. You are looking at Boniko Street, you are looking at Barimbo Street, Pakose Street, up to Kwerete.
All right.
In fact, actually those names, those were the prominent figures working for Rhodesian Spinners, including Katsande. Katsande by then was the personal manager in Rhodesian Spinners, and he was promoted to be the vice compound manager. So naturally his name would be used as one of the streets. And then there was Spinners number 2. That's Kwerete, looking at Vin, you are looking at Bakari, Katsande, and the like.
Okay, so I'm seeing R1 secondary school and that Chedonji primary school. When were they built, those schools?
In fact, I should like to talk about Chedonji Primary School before I talk about Rimoka 1 High School.
Okay, thank you.
Because by then, in the 60s, we only used to have 2 primary schools. That's Kuredza Primary School and Mpamombe Secondary School.
Wow.
And for your own information, viewers out there might be interested in that. Mpamombe Primary School was actually headed by a white man.
All right.
Seda Pavia.
Seda
Pavia, yes. He was the principal of Mpamombe Primary School. I'm talking of Seda Pavia being the principal of Mpamombe Primary School because it was not only Mpamombe Primary School.
All right.
There was also a secondary school there.
Okay, like they were combined.
They were combined. In fact, after 1980, the country had a proliferation of the so-called upper tops. But I want to tell you that Kadoma is the leading light in as far as upper tops are concerned, because we had an upper top in Gatuma then.
Okay.
In Pamombe.
All right.
Is where I actually went to for my secondary education after leaving Chedonje Primary School.
Okay,
So,
you
Primary-
went to Chedonje first.
Yes, I went to Chedonje first.
Okay.
And again, Chedonje is also linked to the deft white or Rhodesian spinners.
What?
Yes, the whites by then
Yeah.
decided to, apart from building houses for their workers,
All right.
they had also to build a school
For their
for the
workers.
children of the workers.
Okay.
And then they asked the folks who worked there, what name should we give to this school? They said, because this is a project for Rhodesian spinners and we're dealing with cotton,
Cotton,
why can't
yeah.
we call it Chedonji? This is where
Oh.
it's coming from.
Okay.
So this is why you talk about Gatuma being cotton, Kadoma being cotton. That's
Oh, Gatoma also is a word which coming from the cotton.
No.
Huh?
Gatuma actually it's a corrupted name again, which came from a hill which is along the Petchway Road. There's a hill there called Kaduna,
Kaduna.
but the whites couldn't pronounce Kaduna,
it. Okay.
so they just call it Gatuma.
Gatuma.
So this is where
Oh.
our town got the name from, Gatuma.
Okay, so how did we change from Gatuma to Kadoma? Right.
Obviously, after independence, just like the country itself, it
Oh,
changed its name from
Rhodesia,
Rhodesia to
Zimbabwe. Okay.
So
okay.
we had to come up with our own names which reflected our own culture and identity.
Wow.
So we had to revert to Kadoma. Instead of Kadoma, it was Kadoma.
Okay.
That was in 1980.
Okay. We had some stories back then that you see nowadays it's a bit expensive to have your own land to build a house. How was it back then?
Actually, you bring out something which is very interesting, and we still have that problem even until now.
Okay.
But for your own information and for people out there, it's very important for you to know that during the colonial times,
Oh yes.
when Kadoma was established, the towns and the cities, although we didn't have cities then, by
All
then,
right. Okay.
they were only reserved, they were only residential areas for those people who used to work in our industries. And so
All
forth.
right.
And
Okay.
who used to work in the different service sectors.
Okay.
So you will see that it's only the workers who used to stay in the towns. And most of the Africans who stayed in Gatuma, which is Kadoma now, would have their families in the rural areas.
All right. All right. All
But
right.
most of the workers, if I'm not mistaken, over 75% of the workers we had in Gatuma
Yeah.
were migrant workers
All right.
from countries like Malawi,
Mozambique.
Zambia, and partly in Mozambique.
Okay.
Those were the guys who formed the bulk of the workforce in the town and the surrounding farms. And then the few local people, native people who would come here were the ones maybe who would come out for seasonal jobs
Okay. Okay.
or
Okay.
part-time jobs and so forth. So you see that every Friday in almost all the towns we had, the people would commute back to their rural
Okay.
areas.
Okay.
It's like that by the time we gained our independence in 1980, the population was composed mainly of these migrant workers from Zambia
Oh.
and Malawi.
Okay.
And after obtaining independence, the government did a deliberate policy of empowering the people in towns and the cities.
All right.
This is when the home ownership schemes started. Actually, when you look at the GINARI section, when you look at the GB section, even the SQ section,
Yes.
the tenure system, these are council houses.
Oh,
Those
yes.
were company houses, the GINARIs were company houses.
All right.
But the SQs in the general barracks, these were council properties, even up to now.
Okay.
But for spinners number 1, spinners number 2, after 1985, the company Dave Whited
Yes.
decided that the tenants who had occupied those quarters from 1966, 1967,
Yeah.
they've actually paid enough monies which were used to construct those houses, and were given the option to buy those houses.
Wow.
So automatically those houses became theirs.
There's yeah. Yeah, it was easy. So then after that, if you want to own your own house, was it difficult if you are to go to council to ask for a place to live and stuff?
Yeah, you see, this issue of people buying stands, this issue of people constructing their own houses on the stands, which on the ground which they bought from council, is only a phenomena which is just to gain traction later on in the 90s, in the 2000s, and so forth.
Okay.
Otherwise, most of the houses which we had by then were council properties, and would go and pay for them at the council office, at the rates offices there.
Wow.
So if this, I have talked about spinners number 1, spinners number 2. Then Scotford, again another big company, Associated
Scotford
Textile,
Yeah.
moved in and also started building houses for its workers, including the ones which you see immediately after between Bakari Street and Fakosi Street,
Alright.
stretch from Kwerete Street up to Chedonje there. Those
Okay.
were Associated Textile houses.
And about Nico and stuff.
No, with Nico, that's Dave Whited.
All
That
right.
was Rhodesian spinners.
Okay.
But I mean, between spinners number 1 and spinners number 2, there was an open piece of land there.
Okay.
This is where Associated Textiles decided to build those 2-roomed houses for their workers.
Okay.
And they also built some 3-roomed houses in the area where we now have that market next adjacent to Kombweza Hotel.
All right.
This is where Associated Textiles built houses for its workers.
Yeah, this is such deep information.
Very deep.
Yeah. We never knew about this, but we grew up here.
So you might want to ask me why people are not interested in these home ownership skills.
Okay.
Like I had alluded to earlier on,
Yeah.
these guys, our fathers and mothers who came from the rural areas of Mondoro, Jimba, and so forth, they didn't actually have a stake in the council properties because they technically they had their own homelands back home, where their wives were, where their children were, and
So they never cared about.
they did.
Yeah.
Because you see, one thing which I want to point out to you about living in town.
Yeah.
I've talked about these houses below, and I'm saying they were built by the companies, they were built for councils to house the town workers.
Oh, yes, yeah.
But as soon as your employment was terminated, then you were evicted from the council houses, you were evicted from the company houses. That would also go the same for people who would retire, people would go on pension. Once you're pensioned off, then it means you have to move out of the house and go back to your original home.
It was a disadvantage,
so people were not very keen to stay in town because you didn't have a stake at the end of the day. You stayed in town for as long as you were employed.
Wow.
As soon as your employment was terminated for one reason or the other, then
so it was a disadvantage.
It was a disadvantage.
Okay. Yeah. We had the light.
So you see, even those people from Malawi, even from those people from Zambia, as soon as they reach the pensionable age, their respective companies would arrange for transport for their families so that they would go back home.
Wow.
That used to happen up to 1980
Oh.
and even in the early 80s.
Yeah.
But then some with nowhere to go, they'll simply move into the SQ area, they'll move into the GB area, and stay with relatives either in the Jinari section, Machimbini section, and the like. And we cannot talk about Rimuka without talking about Machimbini.
Yes, we can't.
In fact, Machimbini is the heart and soul of Rimuka.
Of Rimuka. Okay. Yeah.
Maybe you might want to ask why they were called Machimbini.
Yeah, that name.
Yeah, Machimbini, you see, I'm talking about our grannies, our grandfathers and so forth, even our parents.
Yeah.
Those houses, they were built in such a way that they had chimneys.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So some of them were just 1-2 room house, so people could actually do the cooking inside there. And
Okay.
the chimney was used for its usual
Okay,
purpose, that is
yes.
to eject the smoke.
The smoke
from
out.
the room.
Yeah.
So the people would say, "Where do you stay?" I don't got machimbi. Machimbi. It's chimney.
Oh.
Chimney houses.
Okay. Ndavuga makuziva zvanga musingaziva kuzi Machimbini it was chimney houses.
They were chimney houses.
Okay, we may have to move from that area to another area of yourself. We want to know about this journey because you are well known in Kadoma as someone who is, a legend in English. You demolish English. Yes, the syllabus, you close it in and out. You know what you do. It's like most of people, they are in foreign countries. They know you because they are using that English that you taught them out there. You see, so you are one of the best English teachers in Kadoma.
I wouldn't call that best. In fact, I'm actually surprised when people tell me that your English is so good and so forth. Because I know of better people who can speak English better than I. But anyway, just to answer your question. After doing my primary school at Chedonji Primary School, actually Chedonji was opened in 1969.
Wow.
In the third term of 1969. With people being moved from Kureza Primary School so that they will take up classes there from grade 2. In fact, by then it was sub B.
Okay.
To standard 5, the present grade 7.
All right.
And I'm so lucky that I was
sub B.
Sub B. That's grade 2.
Okay.
I actually started sub A at Chedonji in 1970. And immediately after starting school, that's when the metric system was introduced. So we had to do away with the currents where we used pennies and pounds and started using dollars and cents.
Okay.
And our education system also moved from the standard system to the primary system, which you now know these days.
Okay.
Even the grades themselves changed. So now instead of grade 1, instead of sub A,
sub
it was
B.
now grade 1. Grade 2, sub
B.
Grade 3, standard 1.
Okay.
Grade 4, standard 2.
Okay.
Grade 5, standard 3. Grade 6, standard 4. Grade 7, standard 5. So you see, by the time you read standard 1, you could actually read and write, unlike what is happening these days.
All right. Okay.
So somebody who was actually sub B could read and write. In fact, our brothers and our sisters who went before us, by sub B they could read, they could write. By standard 1, we were so educated that you could be employed as a clerk.
Okay.
And this is why the some of the professions which were reserved for Africans with clerical duties, clerical work, and mabaran.
All right.
Yes.
All
and
right.
all these schools you have mabaran, the present basis, mabaran.
All right.
So you see, and then talking of Gatuma then, that was primary school. Gatuma then, I said there was only Mpamombe upper top.
Yes.
It used to go from Form 1 to Form 2. So if you were in Form 2, you were very, very educated by then.
So it could end there.
That would be the end of the story.
Wow.
Unless maybe if your parents or your guardians had demanded by then, the economy was not such that people could afford to send children to secondary school.
All right.
The only secondary school you would find were boarding schools, like in Sengezi, like in Kutama, and so forth.
All right.
Yes, where a few people would go there, Fletcher High School, and so forth. But if it was for most people like us, after Form 2, that was the end of the story. Because at Form 2, you could join any profession which you liked and so forth. But remember, there was racial discrimination at that time.
All right.
So you couldn't take out the so-called white jobs.
All right.
Fortunately for us, I started at Shedonje Primary School in 1970. And then in 1976, after completing my grade 7, I went to Mpamombe Upper Top. It was a struggle to get to Mpamombe Upper Top because there was a bottleneck system at that time. Only a limited number of candidates would proceed to secondary school. Take our case, for example, in 1976. We had 6 primary schools competing for 72 secondary places.
Yo.
So you could see what the kind of competition.
Yeah, it was too much. It was too much.
So the lucky few who managed to go to Mpamombe Upper Top in 1977 for our Form 1. And we're looking forward to completing our Form 2 so that we can join our colleagues at Deft Whitehead, our colleagues at Scotford, and earn about $7-8 a week, buy a pair of shoes, trousers, and so forth. We used to admire those guys because they used to get their wages every Friday and so forth.
Wow.
Fortunately for us, in 1979, Rimuka Government School was constructed, and we moved there as the first graduates of the school when we were in Form 3. That was 1979.
Sure. So, when the school was built, you were the first ones to be there?
If it were were actually the pioneers, were in Form 3 by then, 1979. Actually, there were 2 schools in one.
All right.
At this present, Remoka 1 High School. It was a Remoka government secondary school.
Okay.
But there was an F2 school and an F1 school. We're in F1, those pursuing academic studies.
All right.
And then there were pupils who were enrolled in the F2. By then, the Form 1s and the Form 2, they were given the options depending on your passes at grade 7 to pursue vocational studies, food and nutrition, fashion and fabrics, metalwork, woodwork by then. And we used to look down on those people because of their academic credentials which they had at primary school.
All right.
But down the line now, we now look at those people and say, well, they did the right thing and so forth too. To join the F2 schools.
Okay, so can you tell us more about the Parumuka High one? How you begin to travel your journey there?
Yes, like I said, Rimuka Government Secondary School was opened its doors in 1979. Form 3s by then. And then there was also a Form 1 class, there was a Form 2 class. So in 1971 we had Form 1s, Form 2s, and the Form 3s. And we're the first O-level graduates at Rimuka 1 High School in 1980. We were right in Cambridge by then.
Who was the head?
The head of the school by then is we called him Mr. In fact, he's also a writer.
He write books.
Again, yes, Epson Ndanga, who later became the ZIMSEC director.
All right.
He's the first headmaster of Remoka Government Secondary School in 1979.
Remoka Government School by then had its fair share of challenges, especially with the caliber of students that used to come at school at that time. Because most of them didn't want to change their ghetto mentality.
Okay.
They would want to bring the ghetto mentality onto the school premises.
Oh yes.
And most teachers by then, some of them were failing you, were quite intimidated by these students. So the staff would face a lot of challenges and so forth. But in my case, I used what I would call the home advantage.
All right.
Because I knew what the ghetto was all about.
You were born
I
here.
was staying in the ghetto.
Yes.
I used to know all the tough guys around town and so forth.
Yes.
So I was not afraid
Yes. Yes.
of
yes.
meting out punishment to students, disciplining students, because I was not afraid even to walk the streets,
Yes.
visit entertainment places,
Yes.
go around the ghetto and so forth. Because actually the ghetto belonged to us. So I used that to my advantage,
Yeah.
to say no to these students, to these learners. We are in the you are living in the ghetto, you are coming from the GB section, muruva kuma 4 rooms,
Yes.
tinosiya hunhu hwedu ikoko
Right.
panotoita zvechikoro.
All right.
But if people decided to be wayward,
Mm.
then I would not hesitate
Yeah.
to mete out punishment, to discipline students. And I actually saw that the students actually respected me for that.
All right. Yes.
I remember from the early 2000s, I used to assist the administration with the disciplinary issues. And I would take it upon myself to move from block 1 to the last block, move from class to class, to patrol every inch of the school.
Yes.
Because I knew it myself.
Yes.
And I knew exactly where the behavior was done and so forth, the toilets and so forth. So it was very easy for me to expose indiscipline before it started. If I was not teaching, I was out there patrolling and making sure that lessons were progressing smoothly without disruptions. And later on, my students gave me a nickname.
They gave you
They gave me a nickname, yes. They called me Robocop. Yes, on television, one of the movies which was showing that time was one of Robocop.
Okay, when you move around in every block. Okay.
Yes, I was not in a hurry. I would move around like Robocop and make sure that.
Also, you guys, you know your nicknames when they give you.
Yes, and one thing which I have discovered as a teacher
Yeah.
is that we all have nicknames.
All right.
Teachers are given nicknames. But one thing you should try to avoid is to get angry or irritated
When they call you that.
when you know your nickname. In fact, what you do is to preempt that nickname by showing to the student that you know that
You
you
know.
call me Mr. Robocop, then it wouldn't last.
Okay.
Even our own teachers, like for example, I've talked about Mr. Stole, was our geography teacher, our Shona teacher.
Yes.
We used to call him Chibuluma.
All right.
Because when he was teaching us geography, he was talking about Chibuluma Kopama in Zambia.
All right,
And he said,
all right,
hi, Chibuluma. And then Mr. Muzenda, our science teacher, we used to call him Trachea.
Oh.
When he was teaching us biology, he was talking about the trachea is an elastic group. And they were, that's trachea and so forth. And then Mr. Mate, our English teacher, we used to call him Thresher. Because he would always say in class, I'll thresh you. And then we called him Mr. Thresher.
Oh, Mr. Treasure. Okay, I believe when I was at R1, pane mamwe mateachers akaita mbiriwo futi idzo dzekudiscipline and stuff, the likes Mr. Bande and Mr. Kunyenya also. Are these guys still there for R1?
Unfortunately, Mr. Bande left the profession. I think it was around 2010.
Okay.
Mr. Kunyenya, unfortunately, is now late.
Oh,
He passed away 2 years down the line after a short illness. But we still have Mr. Fair. He still did.
Oh, Mr. Fair. Teaching, is it only teaching that you are doing right now, or you have some other professions that you have?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
Actually, when people ask me about teaching, I always tell them that teaching to me, it's a calling.
Oh, okay.
I had the option to join any other trade by that time because I had the academic credentials.
Okay.
But I opted for teaching. In fact, I want to encourage most young men out there that they should listen to their conscience when it comes to career choice.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, it's not the paycheck which should be attractive to you, but you should also consider personal attributes and so forth. I like teaching myself for a while.
Okay.
There is this issue which I always tell people, that when we went through the hyperinflationary period, I think it started around 2004, 2005, 2006, and then it got worse in 2007, 2008, up to 2009. In 2008, most of my colleagues abandoned their classes.
Oh.
They left the teaching profession, literally speaking, and joined the trek down south.
Oh,
to
okay,
look for
okay.
manual jobs.
Okay.
Because by then our salaries had been severely eroded by inflation. In fact, we're taking home almost nothing. I remember in 2009 January, when I went to collect my salary at the post office savings bank, it was $4.5 billion.
$1 billion. You have a lot of money.
Actually, I had to foot into town to collect it and spend several hours. There were queues by then. Spend several hours in the queue. After waking up around 12 midnight, going to town and wait for the monies to come. Around 11 o'clock, when I eventually got my money, 4.5 billion, I came home. And it was, those were worthless pieces of paper. I managed to buy only a loaf of bread, half a loaf of bread for 4.5 billion.
Come on, you must be joking.
Yes, and took it home.
4.5 billion.
4.5 billion. I bought half a loaf of bread. That was my January salary. But I did.
Which year was this?
That was 2009.
You mean that money, 4 billion,
money was losing value almost every minute.
Wow.
You would have 4.5 billion worth about 50 cents by then. At the end of the day, would not buy anything. It was a worthless current. So what I'm simply trying to drive home was that most teachers decided to leave the profession. But
because of that.
But to me, because it was a calling.
Okay.
I didn't abandon my classes. I didn't abandon my students.
So how were you living there? How were you managing to feed the family?
That's a very good question. Tairarama negwakumkwakwe. Remember mazai ayaka kwangu sina kana hupfu, kwangu sina kana cooking oil, kwangu sina kana sugar and so forth. Dzimwe taenda pachidonje tunopuwa zvimabhauga, tombopuwa.
Oh, those things. Okay.
And so forth. You see, when you are when I'm teaching, when I'm working, I always tell people I'm not looking at the salary at the end of the day, because what is very important is not what you get.
Okay.
What is very important is for you to know that there's a God up there.
All right.
Teaching to me, I do it pro Dio.
Okay.
There's a God looking at me. This is why even today when I move in and around the city, almost every corner, every student, I meet my children.
Yes.
That to me is enough reward. So we would find ways and means to sustain ourselves, including having this peri-urban agriculture. This year, for example, I had 9 bags of maize, which I've grown on my small plot of land.
Okay.
In the peri-urban areas, you see. Even our parents, because they taught us this culture of self-sustenance, self-reliance. Most of the workers in Gatuma and Kadoma, their wages were not enough to sustain their families.
Yes, very true.
So what would they do? They would carry out peri-urban agriculture. In April, May, even during my primary school days, would go out in the neighboring farms.
All right.
In my first Maria ndakapiwa and ndashanda the whole week was $1 per beat. Ndakanotenga tennis.
You mean the whole week you worked for $1?
Yes.
Okay, maybe it had value back then.
Yeah, to me, as a grade 5, grade 6 child, it was a lot of money.
Okay.
I bought a pair of tennis shoes.
And it's done. It's finished.
It's finished.
Okay.
But by then I was still independent.
Okay.
But I'm saying that I'm talking about this spirit of self-reliance.
Okay. Yes. Yes. We get that.
To find ways and means of sustaining yourself. This is what we used to do. By then, my wife was a cross-border trade. We would go to South Africa, we would go to Botswana, we would stay behind with the family, we would bring groceries, we would bring a little bit of cash and so forth.
Yeah.
Iweta basa rako. Rakapuwana mwari kunzoita.
Yes.
God will do the rest.
Okay.
Sinongonakidza wangopinda mutaona ngona nani bango remotikari kuti Mr. Disalas, how are you? You see, I can't remember most of my students because there are so many. So what I normally do these days is to say, which year was this? You say 2002, 2008. Oh, Rimuka High School.
Okay.
Yes. Then we start the conversation.
Okay. Yeah, because there are too many. I was going to ask you that one, if you are remembering your students.
I taught thousands of students from between 1985.
Okay, but do you have some whom you might remember?
Yes, quite a lot.
With names?
I cannot remember names off record, but let me talk about the Dumisani Mabangas. I told them in 85. Let's talk about the Dismases. Young man who is heading Bright Future College.
Okay.
His brother and so forth.
His brother is a pastor.
He is a pastor now and so forth. I remember those guys and so forth.
Okay.
Most of my students have gone out there and they're doing very well. I have students who are scattered all over the world. Some are medical doctors.
It's very true. It's
some
very
are
true.
Engineers.
It's very
some
true.
Are pilots. I'm talking today of a guy, Jacob Bunjede, with Air Force of Zimbabwe.
Yes.
I remember in 2013, not 2013, it was actually 2015, when we went to the agricultural show. He was a captain by then.
Wow.
And he invited me on the military helicopter, which was commanding at that time. And flew over Kadoma. That was my first time to
fly.
It was a double celebration for me that I have my students.
And also I'm flying.
I'm flying, he's the captain and so forth. And he said, come aboard, say and so forth.
Okay, but do you know that right now, as we are talking right now, there are some of your students who are out there who are very successful out there. They might want to reach you, maybe to show a token of appreciation, but maybe they just don't know how to reach you. Are you free to share your numbers with them?
Yes, my number is 078 5459 023. In fact, I would not be very much interested in having these guys maybe wanting to give me a token of appreciation and so forth. The biggest token of appreciation that they would
success
give me is to come back and give back to the community.
Oh,
nurtured them.
Okay.
Especially when you talk about alumni. I remember in 2000 I worked so hard to set up a Remoka Old Students Association. But of course, because of the problems which he had of hyperinflation in technology was not as advanced as it was
Okay.
as it is now.
Yeah, okay.
I'm still inviting all those guys out there to get in touch with me so that we can revive the idea.
Okay. I think you can hear him yourself. You guys, you are invited.
And maybe they
Yeah.
could assist me because education is from the cradle
Yeah.
to the grave.
Okay.
We want to develop our community.
Yes.
And one way of developing our community is through education.
Yes, very true.
I have a dream whereby former students, former citizens,
Oh, yes.
former Rimuka Kadoma residents
Okay.
would want to come together and set up a school
Mm.
in honor of the legends
Yes, yes.
of this town.
Yes, yes, very true.
And what will you do? Will identify and support academically gifted children from poor backgrounds to enter school, to go to universities and so forth, and still put our town on the world map,
Wow.
on the global village.
There's a great vision there.
I have that dream, and I'm working on it. But if there are guys out there listening to me, yes, let's put our heads together and come up with
Wow.
something
Wow.
which you can feel very proud of. Rimoka has a lot of legends.
Mm.
In fact, Rimoka has produced some of the finest ladies and gentlemen in the world. For your own information, the first rock mechanic in Zimbabwe came from Rimoka.
Wow.
From Rimoka Secondary School.
Wow.
Kenneth Mekan.
Oh, he was.
He went to
from
the
remote-
United States and studied metallurgy for 7 years.
Mm.
The first air traffic controller, one of the first air traffic controllers in Zimbabwe, Charles Piri, is late now,
Okay.
came from Rimoka One High School.
Wow.
And then we have a lot of people here first from Rimoka One High School. We have sports persons coming from Kadoma and so forth.
Mm. Mm.
We want to honor all those people. We want to have a sort of a hall of fame for those people. We want to profile these people.
Yes.
We
yes.
want them to live on.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
see?
Oh yes.
This is my dream.
So this is actually one of the greatest things he have said, and we are looking forward kusimudza Kadoma and vanhu vasingakwanisi kuwana zvakawanda vakwanise kusimudzirwa kudai. So he has a great vision. Guys, if you are listening to these guys, I think you must try to contact him. He gave us his number. Try to contact him. Don't forget to put the code if you are not in Zimbabwe, +263. Then you enter the number you have mentioned. Then you can reach him there. His number is always available. Is always online. So, Mr. Disalas, we want to. We are about to finish this interview, so we just want you, as an English teacher, we just want you to give, I think, maybe 2 or 3 words which you can give them. You are still their teacher, right? You're still Kadoma teacher, which you can give them as a homework to search on their own this vocabulary.
Yeah, I'm very good with my vocabulary.
Yeah.
See, sometimes when I'm in the classroom, I always tell students who are wayward.
Yes.
These are some of the debilitating effects of digitality. You see, and then they ask me, what are you trying to say? Then I say, this is linguistic gymnastics.
Aish. You
Yes,
see?
because to me, English comes unnaturally because I'm an avid reader.
Okay.
I'm an avid listener. In fact, when I'm teaching my students, be they in the public schools, I also assist students who are pursuing their academic studies, ZJC,
Yes.
O-level, A-level, especially O-level English, and so forth. In my very first lesson, I teach them about the 4 basic language skills. And I always tell them that any person who is able to read and write can easily pass his O-level subjects. And the mark of an educated person is his ability to speak the Queen's language, which is English.
English. Okay. So as we're about to finish right now, I don't know if you have something. I know we have discussed a lot, and that is not the last time for him to be here. I think he is going to come back again, also with some of his lessons he's going to teach us. So right now, I'm just going to ask him to say whatever he wishes to say to you guys, so that you might hear his heart.
Yes, I've talked about giving back to the community.
Yes.
I very much believe in that. It's my philosophy.
Yes.
So I'm saying, guys out there, I know most of you are now parents.
Yes.
I know most of you are guardians.
Yes.
And you must still have children, you might have grandchildren,
Yes.
you might have relatives and so forth.
Yes.
Who might want assistance in English and so forth.
Oh, yes.
I'm more than prepared to assist
Yes.
the learners in and around Kadoma.
Okay. Yeah. On that one, I'm seeing there are a lot of people who wants to go abroad, but now they can't do that because of their vocabulary, you see. So they are forced to go back to learn. So I think if you have opened this door for them to learn more, I'm sure they are going to contact you, so that you may teach them.
Yes, my doors are always open. I gave them my phone number.
Yes.
I'm still domiciled at 27 Bakari Street.
Oh, yes.
This is where I have my own small studio where I teach my
Okay.
with the hope of maybe opening a formal school in the future and so forth.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, viewers. Today was a great day. We had a legend, a living legend here in the studio. So for us, me and Mr. D and Mr. Disalas, we are to say bye, you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow, and to like. We would like to hear your comments also in the comment section. So guys, thank you so much. For now, we are to say thank you so much. Bye.
Bye. Cheers.